Hello, hello everyone, and this is Sandra Graves, your host here at En Vivo Live, and the title of the show is The Code, because we believe that there is something inside of each one of us that we need to decode, and that's why the show is called The Code, and it's your beliefs. You have a lot of beliefs um, that is impacting your life, and for this reason you need to identify them, and we bring you different coaches and speakers to help you identify those beliefs to see if they're helping you or they are hurting you. And today we are going to have a coach. She is a business coach, and I'm sure is a personal coach as well, and she will tell us more about that. But what she focuses on is we're going to be talking today about life. What is it again?
Life after loss.
Loss. Life after loss. I can't even say it. Life after loss. Oh my God. Well, that is sound like an intense topic already. But if you are an expert in a particular area and you would like to share your expertise with us, please send us an email to info at envivoassociates.com. Again, info at envivoassociates.com, or visit us at www.envivoassociates.com. And her name is Nicole Jansen, and she is Canadian. And I was even talking to her just now, and I'm like, you do not sound Canadian. But who am I to tell what she sounds like or not? I don't sound Panamanian. People think I'm from Africa. They don't even know where I'm from. So anyway, let's go back to Nicole and let her tell us what this is all about. Who is she? So who are you?
Thank you, Sandra. And maybe I need to slip in an A every once in a while, and then you'll know I'm Canadian. A. So it's great to be here with you. Thank you. And who am I? Well, yes, I'm a Canadian. I live down in Los Angeles, California now. I love it down here. The weather is much nicer. And what I do is actually I'm a business coach, and yes, I also do personal coaching as well, because as you talked about even in your intro, a lot of our success is stems from our belief systems and so forth. So what I do is I help entrepreneurs grow their business, but not just going and focusing on sales or performance or productivity. It's really about what is underlying all that. What are the core elements that really drive success and also happiness and fulfillment. So we're going to talk a little about that today.
Well, thank you for accepting our invitation. I know that you are a very busy woman. And let me tell you, she was also telling me that she runs a podcast and it's weekly, but right now she's on a break. But if you find her, you might be able to find some of her old podcasts. And all you have to do is visit her website. It's right here at the bottom of the screen. You're going to find it. I believe it is discovertheedge.com/Nicole hyphen Jansen. Just look it up right here at the bottom of the video, and you will be able to find her. And then I'm going to have her share with you how else you can connect with her at the end of this video. So we are talking about life after loss.
Yes.
Where do we start?
Well, I think in order to start, you were talking about people being experts on your show and talking about a subject. I don't know that you can ever be an expert in in loss and overcoming loss necessarily, but I come from experience. That's all I can do is share from my experience. And the reason actually why this topic came up for me to even share with it, and I'm actually writing a book about it, is that I've experienced a lot of loss, and what I discovered is it was like this compounding loss. So just a little bit of background on me is that I started my business when I was very young. I was in my teens. My first official business I started when I was 16 years old. I was all excited. I'm like, I'm going to be successful. Everything's going to be great. And, it started off a little slow, but, built some momentum and everything was going fine. And then I also helped my parents develop a very successul business as well along with that. And I thought that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I thought, this is it. We built a multi-million-dollar business, and it was great. when I was in my by the time I was in my mid 20s or so, long story short, that business actually fell apart through, we had some partners that just didn't see the same, the vision, the mission. They didn't have the same core values as we did. And so there was dissension. And anyway, long story short, that business had pretty much disappeared and we had lost that business. And it really shook our family because of course we'd all poured so much into it. And at that point I really had to ask myself, okay, what did I learn from that? And how can I move forward? How can I move beyond that? How can we move beyond that? And which I did. I ended up doing a soul searching process that I now take my clients through in helping them to identify what are their strengths, what's their passion, what do they love to do, and how they can turn that into a business. And that's where Discover the Edge was really born. And things were going well. But over the years, I also noticed that I experienced loss in other areas. So I bought a franchise, and that franchise system fell apart. I put 5 years into that, and it fell apart. I had health issues stemming from some things that had occurred, and then relationship loss and loss all over the place. And then last year, my father passed away, and it was like one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. And while loss, let's say, for example, me losing my father is a very different experience than losing a business and or finances, what I noticed is that there were some commonalities to it. And a lot of times what happens is that we experience these losses and we don't deal with them. And then we end up kind of repeating the pattern, right? We develop, it's like this compounding loss. And then you start to develop patterns, right? Because you start to believe that this is what your life is like, that this is what you attract, And so what I started to do is start talking about it, and even looking at it from my own experience and saying, what is it that is going to help me move forward? I mean, I had a marriage that fell apart, and I can share a little bit of that. There is a happy ending on that.
I did too.
Yeah, well, you know what, and this is it though. There is life after loss.
Yes,
there is.
For that.
Yeah,
Yes.
but when you're in it, it's very, very painful, and whatever it is that you're losing.
Ever going to get out of it? It just feels like forever is the only thing. Yeah.
And it feels like I know that especially when so the first loss, it was like, okay, it was really a major traumatic experience, and then I had health issues, and I was like, okay, I dealt with that one. Okay, I'm past it. Okay, next one. Okay, now I'm past that. Now by the third or fourth one, and then when my marriage started falling apart, then I was like, all right, now I'm starting to take this personally. Like, what is it about me that, like, I'm a good person? Why is this happening to me? Yes. And yeah, I felt like it was never going to end. I felt like there was something in me that was dying.
You felt, and I got, and most people, the way they describe it, like they felt cursed. Yes. Like somebody put some kind of voodoo on them or something like that. Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because I remember saying to my mom is amazing, and she is she's like kind of like my coach, the person that I go to. And I was sharing with her one day, and I said, I feel like I'm playing a game I can't win. Whoa. The game of life that I can't win. And you know what? I don't like playing a game I can't win. Yeah. So I don't want to play anymore. And that is a very scary place to be. And so that's where I think it's important to talk about this. And as I started to share with people, and I want to give thanks to Jenny Lopez. She was on your show a while back, and she actually was the one who introduced me to you. Oh, okay. And I was talking to her, and she said that, I said, what do you think about this? And we were talking about it. She said, oh my goodness, there's so many people experiencing this right now. And so I think it's worth talking about. So that's really why what does this have to do with business coaching? Well, it has a lot to do with it because I'm working with people who are saying, I want to do this and I want to do that. Or maybe they're at a point where they're saying, you know what, I don't even think I can do that. I had a dream. I had something I wanted to create. But you know what? I don't even believe that it's possible right now. I'm just trying to survive. Yes. And most people feel like failures. I mean, they have had so much success, but something happened and it was just, it felt like a rock. And then Now you feel lost. Now you don't know what you're going to do. Now what is the next step? Now, who is going to help me? How am I going to get out of this? And I'm glad that
Yes.
you're bringing it up because it does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing, if you want me to share, I mean, I think the first thing is to, and like I said, I'm writing a book on this. There's different elements. I think the first thing is I looked at what did I do to get past it. Is that I looked at it as what am I learning from this? What am I? Because you gotta get the nuggets out of it, right? Because if all you do is focus on the loss, right? Then that's all you see,
Yes.
and then you're just going to get more of that,
Yes.
and it's going to get dark. It's very hard to get yourself out of that pit of despair, at that point. So for me, I had to look at it and say, what am I learning? I read another mentor of mine who, Blair Singer, he has a process where you can debrief any situation, and you ask yourself, okay, what worked about this? What didn't work? What did I learn? And what can I do differently next time? And so I really dug into that and said, okay, what am I learning from this? What can I extract from this? Because life is about learning.
Mm-hmm.
What am I learning about myself? And even like with my marriage, yeah, I mean, my husband, he went off the rails, and he's like midlife crisis. I mean, everything to go with, I mean, it's crazy town, right? And it was very difficult to go through that for me. And I took it personally. Initially, I took it personally. And it was like, well, I'm not good enough. That lie that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
It sounds different, but it's all essentially about us being not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not smart enough. We all have this primary lie that we've somehow bought into at some point, and it runs our life. And so I started off with that, and then I realized, hey, wait a second, you know what? There are some things that I can improve about myself. Same thing with business. When the business didn't work out, I can look and say, wow, you know what? There were some things that I contributed to that. There's some things I could have done differently.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
So rather
that
than
is
blaming,
where
now we
people
gotta go
find
past the
themselves.
blame, the justification.
That is
Yes?
where people find themselves more lost. Because if you get into the excuses and, oh, that person is to blame, okay, it's already over. No, what can I do to make it better? And I like that you bring that up because that was the same situation I had when when I finished with my ex-husband. I had to get to that point where I was like, I did this wrong, I did this wrong, I did this wrong, and how can I improve it? Because that helped me to find the husband that I have now because I improved who I was, the mistakes that I made.
Yes, and you know what? You know how we learn is we learn through making mistakes, right? As adults, we don't want to make mistakes. We want to do everything perfect because we're supposed to do everything right.
Yes.
There is that right-wrong conversation. I submit that there is not about right or wrong,
Yes.
right? It either worked to get the result that you're looking for or it didn't.
Yes.
And so maybe there were some things you did in your marriage that didn't work to give you the result of having a happy marriage.
Exactly.
Right? But you can, absolutely, you can learn from that. And if you blame, here's the other thing is that when you blame other people, and it's very easy to do, you blame other people for, I think about it as like, first of all, you can be in denial. Everything's fine. How's business? Everything's good. Everything's fine. And then you're like, it's not fine, but I don't want to admit it. And then you're like, okay, I can't ignore it. It's not fine. But now I'm going to blame other people for, okay, it's the economy, it's this, it's that, it's all these other people that are, or outside forces that are impacting it.
Yes.
And then there's justification, right? Then there's, well, if you had been in my situation, if you had had my childhood, if you had had my situation, then you would understand. Or, and that doesn't put us in a position where we have power. Yes. Power is when you are in control. I often will tell my clients, it's like, you need to slide back over into the driver's seat.
Yes.
You gotta get in the driver's seat. Rather than saying, I have to do this, even, right? If you can notice our language, if I have to do this, I have to do that, that's not really, that's more of, it sounds like an obligation. I have to do this. Or it's just an example of people not being in the driver's seat. Whereas you say, I choose to. I choose to learn from this.
That's right.
Not rather than I have to learn from this. I gotta get over this. I gotta get out of this. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. It's almost like out of desperation. Now we're in survival mode.
That's right.
And I get it because I've been there. And yet what I realized is that I had to take my own coaching and say, okay, how do I go from having to and or surviving to choosing? What do I choose?
Yes.
Right? So learning from that experience. And you know what? I've learned so much. I mean, I've had partnerships, business partnerships. I've had people like that first business I talked about, our family business. There were outside forces that were very destructive. It cost us and our family and the legacy of our, millions and millions of dollars. It's incalculable how much that cost. And yet, if I blame that person or those people, right, then I can't do anything about it, because they have the power, because
Right.
they're in control of my destiny. They're in control of my success or failure. And so it's coming from and saying, okay, what could we do differently? What can we do that we can, or next time, that we can prevent that from happening? And so I learned a lot about business. Actually, I learned a lot on the way up in business. I also actually probably learned more on the way down, right?
Yes.
And you go, okay. Because when there's success, it's like, you know what? Everything's great. It's wonderful. Money's flowing. Things are happening. It's all great. How much are you really learning in that process?
That's
It's
right.
through the struggle is where you actually are. It's painful enough that you look at it and you go, I need to pay attention. What can I learn from this?
And that's where our best learning experiences come from, is when we are down and we have the ability to be able to identify what is the problem. And like she said, not be blaming other people, not pointing fingers, and not cursing yourself. Simply saying, okay, what do I have to learn from this experience? And that's all. But I can tell you that I have been there where, I'm cursing everybody else and blaming my ex-boss and this one, my ex-husband. I don't do that anymore. And when someone say to me, you have to do this, or I have to do that, or why you not doing this, anytime they use the word have to, I tell them the only thing that I have to do one of these days is die. And the only person in charge of that is God and nobody else. Everything else is optional. Right?
Yes. Yes. Oh, and you bring up a good point. It's also not blaming yourself, because you can beat yourself up, and that doesn't help either. So just set aside the blame and say, okay, what can I learn from this?
Yes.
And it's interesting, a little story. I had a client.
I'm going to hold that thought, and we're going to be right back. Gente, aquí Sandra Graves, y oye, quería decirte que te conectes con En Vivo Live todos los martes aquí en YouTube. We are going to be here every Thursday at 7 p.m. with different guests, bringing you different information, con invitados especiales, con tu anfitriona, yo, Sandra Graves. No te olvides, subscribe, suscriba y comenta. The code is presented by En Vivo Associates, our affiliates, our sponsors, and of course, our guests. Our guests who present you with the tools that you need to identify the success you desire. If you would like to be a guest in this show, or if you have any comments or questions or any show idea for us, please send us an email to info@envivoassociates.com. Thank you for tuning in to The Code. Well, guys, welcome back to The Code. This is your host, Sandra Graves, and today I am with the business coach, and her name is Nicole Jansen, and we're talking about life after loss. And before I cut her off to go to commercial, she was going to share something with us. So let's go back to her and see what that was.
Well, I was going to share a story. I had a client once who was a general contractor, and he had started out his business, worked really, really hard, and he was in survival mode. And so even though his business was going well, but he was in survival because he was trying to keep up with the growth. And he said to me, I have to, so coming back to this have to, and it actually leads into my second point. Well, so he said, I have to be successful. And I said, no, you don't. And he says, what are you talking about? Of course I have to be successful. I said, no, you don't. I said, every single day when you drive down the road, there are people sitting on the street corner that prove that you don't have to do anything. You choose to. And there is a big difference with that. So now we talk about choosing, okay, so it's like, what do we choose? And when it comes to loss, and as I said, I've experienced losses of, loss of a loved one, loss of relationship and so forth. just the key is you got to remember and focus, like I was saying earlier, rather than focusing on the loss, focus on what you do have, and focus on the fact that you're here. You're still here. And if you're still here, that means there's a plan and there's a purpose for your life. And so once you've learned and extracted the learning and the lessons from it, then number two is you got to look at it and say, okay, so now that I've got these lessons, what are they for? How can I use them in my life to move forward?
Yes.
We're talking about life after loss. What does that life look like? I mean, that first business that we had, that the family business, not my business, but the family business that we had, which I then became a partner with them in that business. I learned so much out of that. That actually became the sort of the lesson, the breeding ground for the lessons that I actually then used in starting Discover the Edge back in 2005.
Yes.
The health challenges that I had, at one point the doctors were like, oh, sorry, too bad, right? And I'm going, what? And so I had to start searching out and figuring out alternative ways to get healthy because I was in control of my own body. I was in control of my health and my future. And so, and so then I learned a whole lot about health. And then later on, when my dad was getting sick and, and they were diagnosing him with celiac and all these different things, I took that and I could teach that to my parents and teach that and help others and help my clients to be healthier. So every time we have these valleys or these really difficult times in our life, there is something that is there. There is a seed that we can plant, or that has been planted, that we can use, we can fertilize to be able to move to the next thing. And that's where you got to focus on the future. And on my Facebook page, I have this scripture which is this: faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these is love. And what I discovered after my dad passed away, in particular, really stood out was, yes, I had faith. I had been through so much by that time that I had a faith. I knew that God loved me. I knew that there was a plan and a purpose for my life. I had love. I had family that loved me, people that cared about me, amazing clients and friends and so forth. But what I was missing for a short period of time was hope. Mm-hmm. Because all I could see was what was, focusing on, again, that loss. And there's a scripture that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so recognizing and saying, you know what, maybe what it is that you're missing, if you're stuck and you're looping in that and you're feeling depressed, is that you're lacking the hope. So look for ways saying, how can I find hope? Mm-hmm. By looking at, what do I have? Yes. Who is still here in my life? That's right. I mean, it'll be next week that it would have been my dad's 75th anniversary and 75th birthday, and my parents' 50th anniversary, and when my dad passed away, he passed away suddenly. One day he was fine. I was talking to him on the phone, and the next morning I got a call from my mom and said, your dad passed at 7 a.m. in the morning, woke me up. Your father just passed away. Mm-hmm. And it's like, in that moment, it's like all the family dreams, all the things that we were going to do, all the plans that we were going to, all died with it. Yes. But it was a few days later, about 5 or 6 days later, it was almost like he visited me, and he said, I know, and I was so sad. Of course, my mother was upset. I mean, they had been married 49 years. We had all these plans of what we were going to do and so forth, and it was like he visited me, and because I was praying, I needed peace. I needed to be there for my mom. I needed to be there for my brother and his brother, my uncle, who was devastated. And it was like he visited me, and he said, I know that you miss me. I know that you love me, but it's time to move on. Mm-hmm. You got to get up and you got to move forward, and you got to get with my dad would say, get with the program. and I'm like, yep, he would say that, And do I still miss him? Absolutely. But something snapped, and it was like, you know what? I need to focus on the vision. One of the lessons that I got from him and from my parents in their life was always having a vision, always having a dream, and something that you're focusing on, you're moving towards. Because without vision, the people perish.
That's right.
Another scripture. So.
That's right. Yeah, that is great that you mentioned that, because even the people listening right now, you might be thinking, well, nobody's around me, but just like she said, you are here. And as long as you are here, you have the ability to move on. But you have to make that decision because it is a decision. It's a hard decision, but you have to move on. I lost my sister last year to cancer, and I never thought I was going to lose any of my sisters. I mean, like, you don't think about these things, but that is life. That's the reason why we have to enjoy each day and be so grateful and just be thankful and just, appreciate every little thing that we get because we can lose it at any moment.
Yes.
So we have to be, just like you said, we have to keep that hope and we have to keep faith, but definitely we have to keep focusing and getting ahead. Just like what your dad said. What did he say again?
Get with the program. Move on. Program. Yes.
And that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with, you say, well, how do I do that? When you're in that difficult situation and you're struggling, like, how do you actually do that? I've done a lot of training, advanced coaching programs and so forth. And one of them was with Tony Robbins. And Tony is, world renowned. He's, coached and trained millions of people around the world. And he's got some really good, he's a master at what he does. And he's got some really good elements that I've incorporated in my coaching. And one of them is what he calls the Triad. And if you want to shift your emotional state or you want to, shift how you feel, he talks about change your words. Mm-hmm. So if you think of a triangle, right? Just think of a triangle and you say, okay, change your words, change your focus, change your state.
Yeah.
So changing your words. And what I did is I actually overlaid, some of these habits that we hear, right? Affirmations and incantations, and you hear all these you got to say these affirmations to yourself. And, and be careful what you say to yourself. That's part of so what I did is I actually overlaid them on top of that. Mm-hmm. So you say, well, how do I change my words? It's noticing what you say to yourself every day. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'll never do this.
Yes.
And stop and saying, no, you know what? I can do this.
Yes.
And replacing it with the opposite, positive.
That's right.
Speaking those affirmations, speaking life, declare what you want to have happen in your life as though it is. I am. There's power in that I am statement. I am. Everything after that I am becomes your identity.
That's right.
Over time. You keep repeating it. So change your words, change your focus is the gratitude exercise. One of the things I would encourage your listeners to do is to do a gratitude exercise in the morning. Set yourself, and this, you can just ask yourself, what are you grateful for? And that's part of it. I like to start off with something that I learned from one of my mentors, which is actually say, what is my number one goal or intention for today? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that is just to be the best me. So
that's right.
I don't, the rest of it's all to-do lists, right?
That's right.
It's what is my intention for today? And number two is what am I willing to give to others?
That's right.
What am I willing to give to others today? And then what am I grateful for?
That's right.
That others do for me, and what am I grateful for about my life? So it actually, what it does is it starts the flow. If you notice, it's what am I giving out, right? And what am I receiving? So it starts that flow, and especially for people that have experienced loss, where they feel like everything's going out and they're not receiving anything back, yeah. Right? It's important for that cycle for them to start to recognize. It's very subconscious, but it's important for them to recognize that cycle beginning to happen. And then change your state it's how you shift, how if you're depressed, oftentimes people who are depressed and in despair, they will slouch down, they move slowly, and they do it, right? So it shows up in our physiology.
So, thank you for sharing that. We are out of time. This has been a very, very good program, but we are out of time right now. And what is one of the last words that you want to end this with?
Believe in yourself and believe in your future, because your future is bright.
And I agree with that. I second that. So if you want to share your story with us, please contact us at info@envivoassociate.com. And also, do you want them to follow you on any of your social media or anything like that?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or go to discovertheedge.com. Everything's there, and they can access the link up to me there. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Nicole.